Hey everyone, I'm Nicole here at DIY, and today I'm going to revamp this IKEA bed and turn it into something luxurious and beautiful. Are you ready? Let's go! Whenever I'm doing a room makeover, I always make myself a mood board and get inspiration from other pieces that I really like the look of. And this bed is it. I love how it has the double headboard, so it means I can put less cushions on there to achieve a nice finished fluffy look. First up, I'm going to measure the width of my bed. Mine's a queen bed, so it's 1600 wide. Now you can use any cheap bed for this. It doesn't have to be an IKEA, and it doesn't have to have a bed head. In fact, I'm actually going to cut my original IKEA bed head off. So if it doesn't have one, it's even better. Next up, I'm going to use the cushions that I'm going to use in the makeover. I want to make sure that my bed head sits higher than these because I don't want it to get swallowed behind some cushions. Next, I drew up a basic sketch trying to get the proportions right. And then because I'm extra, I actually drew it up to scale in Adobe InDesign. And I actually ended up making this top one, but I also extended the top just a little bit higher than this sketch shows. For my backing boards, I chose 6mm, which is about 1/4 inch MDF, and I needed 2 big panels of this, so it cost me around 60 Australian dollars. I recently installed some roof racks on my car, and it is so handy to be able to buy panels now and take them home myself. Next up, I needed to cut my pieces down to size, so I need 1 big piece for the back and then 2 smaller pieces for the front of the bed head. I used my circular saw to cut these down, and then I just grabbed a kitchen bowl to create a curve on the top edges of all of my pieces. Next up, I needed to prepare my foam. Now, I am a reuser of stuff. Foam can be expensive, so I actually got this free secondhand mattress that was nice and clean, and I cut it in half. Now, I would recommend just getting the thinner mattresses instead of cutting it in half. It worked, but definitely look for something that is around 4 inches or 10 centimeters in thickness so that you don't have to cut it in half like I did. Very satisfying though. Alright, so I've got this quick grip spray adhesive which I'm going to use to put the foam onto my MDF backing board. You want to look for something that has the ability to adhere to polyurethane foam. Just ignore that mottled look on the panel already. I used a different spray adhesive that did not work. Be sure to spray both the MDF and the foam. Let it dry a little bit and then you can piece them together. It's definitely a lot easier doing this with 2 people, but Cheeky just wanted to look and not help. I stacked the other piece of foam and the other 2 pieces of board just on top of that so it could all sandwich together, and then just put my coffee table. Oh. Look at that hissy fit. Oh, DIY can be frustrating. So then once it was all dry, I just used my knife again to cut around all of my pieces and get them ready for shaping. The 2 front pieces need a piece just cut out of the bottom there so that the mattress has space to snug up against it. Okay, now we need to do some edge shaping around the 3 edges. Okay, so this edge is going to be nice and straight, but I want to curve these over like the inspiration bed head that I saw. Alright, so what I'm going to do is measure the depth of my foam. So my foam is 6 centimeters thick. So I know that I want to draw a line in 6 centimeters all the way around, so that I'm sort of making a square, and then I'll be able to actually do a quarter round. Okay, so let's measure 6 in all the way around. Now basically, I'm going to be making a curve similar to this. So I'm going to halve that. And then this will give me guidelines for the first cut. I'm going to pop a new fresh blade in here because I've used this one to cut the whole thing, and it's not just the little tip I've been using, it's actually the whole lot. So I'm just cutting along in between those 2 inner lines. Now when I get to this end here, I'm going to sort of curve around a little bit. There we go. And then I'm just going to trim off 2 more pieces, making sure that I go to the further line now and just a little bit less shallow. Okay. All right, that'll do for now. And then I might see if that needs a bit of extra shaping. Let's just keep going with these and get them to this rough shape. So here's just a closer view so you can see how I'm running along those 2 inner lines first and then running along those outer lines. And I found that if you use a lazy Susan underneath, then you can spin it and get to stuff faster. Next, I'm actually going in and just refining the edges a little bit more. So everywhere there is just a bit of a sharp edge, I'm just trying to cut that off just gently over the top, just to get a really nice smooth curve. Okay, here is how we are looking on our big piece. So I got all of this done last night, curving all the edges. So it's feeling good. I know it doesn't look super smooth or anything, but it is a really nice curve. Our next stage is wadding. Okay, let's get this done. Just gonna lay this on and see how one layer looks. Well, it's actually a double layer. I've got 2. I think 2 layers is going to be just fine for this. So I'll just cut off this excess. Now just to show you the corners of the wadding, I've chopped a little square out of this corner and the other corner. The round corners are fine, but just to reduce a little bit of that extra wadding right there, because we don't want too much. We don't want to sort of have an extra little bubble here. Okay, so I got myself a new toy to be able to upholster this bed head. This is going to be an excellent addition to my toolkit. So this is the Zito cordless staple gun. Okay, let's put some staples in. So we push down and pull out this, and then our staples go in here. Yeah. Lock that on. This is our adjustment dial, so if we want more power or less power, I'm gonna have it on max power to start and see how that goes. And then let's just put our battery on. Let's go. So I'm not gonna sort of staple this on completely. All I'm gonna do is pop a couple in this end, one in this side, one in this side, just to sort of secure it in place for the moment. Then we're gonna pop our fabric on and cut that out. So it's just to kind of keep this roughly in place. For fabric for the bed head, I chose a micro suede with a felt backing. Now, the most important factor for me was that there was no threads that my cats could pull. I would love to do a linen bed head, but they would shred it in seconds. I laid the micro suede over my piece and just popped in a couple of staples to hold it in place while I turn it over. Next, I pulled out those few placeholder staples that I put with the top of fabric, and I went around and secured all of the wadding all the way around the edges and just cutting off any excess. You can see that the wadding actually goes just a little bit over the lip. So I've got all of my wadding stapled in place. I've got about 2 inches in between each staple, but you can do as much as you feel you need to do. All right, now what we're going to do is start stapling the fabric. So I'm going to start at the bottom of the bed head, right in the center. All right, just eyeball it. I'm just going to bring my fabric up. Again, I'm not pulling too much. And I'm just going to pop a staple in. I'm going to do about 2 inches in, okay? Now I'm going to go to the opposite side. What we're going to do is make sure that we don't have any sort of wrinkles or anything underneath. No, we're all fine. All right, I'm going to make sure I'm directly opposite that first staple. And I'm just going to pull gently. Okay, just a little bit of tautness. Nothing too strenuous. 2 inches in. Pop a staple. Okay, now we're going to go to the middle of the end. So I'll come up here. Now, we're going to continue splitting the difference, okay? So, we've got sort of our base tautness for everything. So we want to make sure that we don't go any tauter than that, because otherwise we'll be sort of stretching it a little bit too much. We do actually need to do a little bit of stretching as we're going over these two corners up here, but once we get to that, I will show you. Next up, I'm going to split the difference between here and the end. Pop a staple in here. Come opposite. I think you get the gist by now. Split the difference and keep going. Once you've got staples every sort of 3 inches or so, don't forget to tuck in these bottom straight corners. It doesn't really matter how you tuck it. I think the way I did it was quite incorrect, but as long as it looks fine on the edges, don't stress, just staple away. Now let's work on these tricky curved corners. So bring your staples all the way up to the edge, and then you're going to trim off a little bit of the excess, but make sure you can still grab onto that fabric enough. Then we're going to start in the center, press it down, and then we're going to do the same old thing, split the difference each time. Now you probably will have to pull out a staple here and there if you're finding that it just wasn't the right distance. I had to do this quite a few times just because it was my first time doing this curved corners. It's totally normal. Pull out any that you need to pull out and then reposition. Keep going until all of your staples are literally right next to each other. And you can see that here I've actually gone quite close to the edge of the board instead of that 2 inches out. Just taper that inwards. And then cut off your remaining excess, and you can use a few more staples to just flatten down all that sticky outy fabric. I did the 2 front pieces in the same way, but just doing a separate section at that bottom with just a separate piece of flat fabric. All right, it's moment of truth time. Do I know what I'm talking about? Or did I just make a really ugly bed head? My table. A little lumpy bumpies, but that is pretty good. Okay, now I need to remove the existing bed head. Now, because this is timber, I can just simply cut this off. Also check whether you might be able to unscrew that top part depending on what kind of bed you have. I'm going to add some legs out of just some scrap wood just for some extra support so that I can drill through these into the bed base. I then added a cross piece for some extra stability and just used pocket holes on each end in order to secure it to both of the legs. I added some liquid nails to the back of this so that I could then apply this to the bed head, and just popped a couple of small screws in there to hold it in place while it dried. I also ended up notching out a small section at the bottom of both legs to fit snugly up against the wall and over that skirting board. And I put felt pads just on the back so I could use the support of the wall to lean back on the bed head. All right, so I've got here my 2 front pieces that go in front of here. What I want to try and do is connect them together so that they sort of stay at the right height. Then we also need to drill some holes in the back of here so that we can then pierce through here and affix it at the back just so that these sit up against here nice and snugly. So you could either use something like a spade bit or a Forstner bit to make sort of a largish hole. Now, to explain why I'm putting 2 holes into the back of these in each corner is because I want to thread fishing line through those 2 holes and then pierce that straight through the back of the other piece. Now, why aren't I just screwing on a little plate that I can kind of tie the fishing line onto? Well, that's because with MDF, screws tend to just pull out really easily. I grabbed a few cheap needle sets from the dollar store to do this next part. So one was just a set of upholstery needles, and I bent the middle longest one, roughly the same size as the distance between the 2 holes. I also grabbed some nice strong fishing line, and then I also grabbed some mattress needles. I grabbed these online. All right, so I've got my 2 holes. I just want to show you nice and close. So I'm just threading my needle. So I'm just going to make sure that I'm sort of through all of that and just clean out a little bit of space so I can see the needle coming through over here if I need to. I've got needle nose pliers ready to grab it from this side as soon as I see the head here. Okay, so I'm going to try and feed it as close to sort of the MDF as possible along here. Just try and keep it straight. And there we go, I can start to see the tip of the needle there. I go in operation style and just lift that up and bring it through. And then I will tie this in a bow so I can come and use this all later. There we go. To join my two front pieces together, I just used these little brackets with a hole on each end. Yes, I use screws for these, but there is not going to be a huge amount of pressure on these. I did also add some liquid nails onto the back of these just to give it extra strength. So I've got my three sort of jointy things. Next step is I'm going to try and stand this up, get it into the right position, and then do some measuring. Okay, so I'm going to follow this around. I'm going to mark here, and I'm going to mark here. Okay, and then at the back I'll just meet these and then drill myself a hole. I drilled 4 holes in the back, just where those vertical and horizontal marks met into an X. I need to take our little bow out, get these all roughly the same length, cut them off, thread them, aim and close. Got it. Okay, next. Alright, I need to pull that out of the multiple again without chopping off my fingers. All right, so the back is all done, which means the whole bed head is all done, I think. Here's just a little close-up of what that looks like. You can see how nice and taut they are up against here. Nice and secure. Okay, wobbly, but nice and secure. And the last thing I'm doing is just adding a few pieces of that upholstery fabric to create this super simple bed skirt. This brings it to such a different level of sophistication. Plus, you can pop all of your storage boxes underneath and hide away some shoes. Now let's make the bed, and I can show you how I turned a basic IKEA bed into luxury. Just a reminder that I do all sorts of DIY content. It is free to subscribe, and by liking and commenting, you greatly help support my channel. Another way to support is to buy me a coffee. I will pop the link in the description below. If you want to see the full bedroom makeover, click on this link up here or down in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I am on all the socials if you want to follow me there too.